and welcome to another Sacred Wisdom podcast with me, Rebecca Parkes, my co-host Chris Clifford, and our special guests, Grandmother Mulara and Sue. And it's so lovely to be back here because it's actually been, I think, 4.5 months since Chris and I last recorded a Sacred Wisdom podcast, and about 5 months since we last connected with Grandmother Mulara and Sue on one of our podcasts. And I know a lot's happened in the last few months. For me, just connecting consciousness, we've been developing our worldwide voices and our whole guest speaker process. And Chris and I have been really busy in planning and preparing our next lot of spiritual topics, and basically the next whole year's format of what we're doing and where we're going with those, which is really exciting. So that's, I've been here. I just haven't been doing Sacred Wisdom podcasts. So it's so lovely to be back. And over to Chris.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Welcome back, Grandmother Mulara and Sue, and welcome to all of our listeners. And so, yes, it has been a while since we've all been together. And I'll just share a funny comment. My husband asked, oh, who's on your podcast today? Because it's been a while. So I told him who was on the podcast. And of course, he's my grandmother Mulara. So he said, oh, the 4 grannies. So we got a laugh out of that. So anyway, as Becky said, there has been a lot going on with connecting consciousness, a lot of exciting things that we're working on, including new opportunities for engagement for our members and for our coordinators in support of our members, and a lot of work on monthly spiritual topics. We just finished a series on values. We do have one more exciting Worldwide Voices session on values that Grandmother Mulara will be leading next week. So if you're a CC member watching this, check it out on Mighty Networks. It's values and leadership. And so in today's podcast, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're starting with updates from everyone. And then we asked our Connecting Consciousness members for a list of questions or topics that they would like to have covered today. So we'll select a few of those today to talk about. It is a long list. So thank you to all those who contributed. And if your topic doesn't get selected today, we will have other podcasts. Simon and Becky will likely have a podcast. So there's many other opportunities to have your topic covered. And with that said, I will hand over to Grandmother Mulara for an update. Thank you.
Blessings, everybody. It's been a while, but then it hasn't with the values masterclass going on. So I don't feel like I've lost, the beat of the heartbeat of connecting consciousness. But yeah, it's lovely to be back with the 4 grannies again. The grandmothers are rising in a new way. So that what I've been doing is being part of the whole movement of change in Australia. We've actually moving to a sovereign governance and a sovereign judiciary, a sovereign cabinet, like political, you could call it political, even though we're not like the politicians political. And it's come about through last year's effort on The Voice that we won. It brought us together in a way that nothing else could have. So elders, and in particular senior law elders, those of us that hold the law, men and women, it's the first time we've ever walked together. Always we stick to our own business, but now we're walking together. And the most important senior law elders are part of what we call the senior law bench or a senior law circle, who is the pinnacle of this supreme government. We're the supreme judiciary, Supreme Court, supreme governance. And so I've been involved in setting up that what we're calling the tribal courts, or the what we're calling them, the custodial court, where we're hearing matters coming before us, and we're all there together by Zoom or in person to hear the issues and to make a determination of it, and then issue orders from the court. And what we're doing with those orders is sending them through to the colonial government, their respective bits and pieces. We're also lifting court matters out of the colonial system, out of the corporation, into our court. We're then making a deliberation on them, and then we're sending back the responses to those to the court sitting. So it's early days, but we're already very busy, and the paperwork is astounding. We've been able to release people out of jail. We've been able to have kids protected, with kids returned. There's a great deal more of work to do, but that's the beginning, and it's really the grandmother law is actually the sovereign law of this continent, and we're all coming together. In fact, we've got like nearly 200 tribes who have all come into pactum under this umbrella, which we've now called Namdaka Dala Australis. Namdaka Dala is our ancient language, which means our southern lands. And then we're adding Australis on the end so that people know that we're talking about this continent. Namdaka Dala Australis. You're going to hear a lot about that. We are the sovereign governance of this country. And so it is the superior court when we're addressing courts. And just on Monday this week, so just a couple of days ago, there were 2 courts in South Australia that got served with the notice, the judge and the opposite lawyer, and they're looking at it, they're going, it says superior court. So they adjourned the matter, and the judge said, I'm going to have to go and find out about this Namdaka Dala Australis. And what they'll find out is that, in fact, we're higher than the High Court. We're the sovereign court. So, and because it's who's sitting in that court, in effect, or overseeing it, are all the senior law holders, those of us that hold the knowledge and the law, LORE law. And no one can have a go at us because we're holding the law of the land here. That's what I've been busy with. Thank you.
Thank you, Grandmother Mulara. That's very interesting, and a lot of just amazing work. Words don't describe the importance.
There are connecting consciousness people have come in as well as part of it. They've really wanting to know how to be part of it. So the Australian people are coming in and being active as well. It's great. Really grateful.
Thank you, Grandmother Mulara. So, what's going on in your world?
I'm just so grateful to be back with the grannies. It's just really fun. And Grandmother Mulara, I have to say, I am so excited. Well, I'm excited about what all 3 of you are doing. I'm really excited about your movement in Australia and what you're doing. That's just fantastic, especially with all you've been dealing with over the last couple of years. But I'm really excited too what Becky and Chris are doing with the spiritual topics and how you're setting up going forward. So what's going on for me, back last fall, I was told to lay low. Like I felt like I went into a chrysalis, and like I was that mush inside the caterpillar, not knowing, what I was going to become when I came out. And when I finally came out, I'm not even sure my wings are dry yet. What I started noticing, because, most of the people listening know that I do these sessions and I'm doing the monthly tune-ups, and it's obvious that my guys have really taken it to another level, because they're trying to help everyone move through this transition, this quantum leap for humanity. And I just watch them, okay, little step, little step, little step, but to prepare us with both with physical changes, but and with our awarenesses. It's just been really fun. And one of the things, you know, I've run the map journey, which is basically like to help people move through life in a spiritual way, like navigating life in a different way. And I'm getting ready to start another session of that. But my guys, again, have like really, they've put in new sections. They're taking things to another level so that it empowers people to the greatest amount possible. Because we are all, I'm talking especially in connecting consciousness, we are all coming into that time and place where we really need to step up, recognize ourselves as powerful beings, and be ready to take our part, play our part in, you know, the humanitarian projects, in creating the world that we want to live in, all of that stuff. So I'm just going to say, having done this session like 6 times, watching what seem like ordinary people, like a lot of spiritual people come, but there's a lot of ordinary people, watching them really start to know themselves and trust and have faith in, and not worry about, not need to know what's going to happen, how things are going to turn out, but to start trusting grace and divine frequency. It has been so fun. So anyway, my guys are also telling me I have to have the map book out by Christmas. We'll see what I can do with an accompanying journal and inspiration cards. So that's what I've been doing.
Thank you so much, Grandmother Mulara and Sue. It's both very exciting stuff. And I just wanted to add, before we go on and talk more about frequencies to do with the solar eclipse, Chris and I have been looking at, as part of our spiritual, one of the previous spiritual topics, I'm moving on into a future spiritual topic, we've been looking at the range of frequencies that humans hold. And I haven't looked at it recently, so I can't remember the exact things. But, you know, the very lower ones, like, you know, grief and sadness and apathy and fear, the low vibrational ones. And then the, you know, the medium ones like courage, and then moving up to joy and love and inspiration. And then there's like the really highest vibration. And the thing about human beings is that we can go from the highest to the lowest, and we have the most enormous range of emotions. And I was speaking to a young man a couple of weeks ago who I know really well, and he said to me, you know, I think I might have bipolar. You know how this generation is always taught to worry about their mental health. And I said to him, I said, no, I said, I know you don't, because I do know him well enough to say that. And I said, human beings encompass the widest range of emotions, and it's something we need to acknowledge. And it's okay if we're feeling the lower vibrational ones from time to time, because we can actually zip up to the highest ones almost in a heartbeat. And it's not normal and natural for a human being to stay in the highest range at the very top. I mean, none of us can really attain that 100% of the time, you know, day and night. We all have our range of emotions, and different things, different interactions, different daily things that we do, you know, affect all the different things. And I love, there's another chart that I saw recently, and it was about how to keep your happy hormones. So we have like oxytocin, and we have endorphins, and we have dopamine and serotonin, and different things that you can do just to support that. So that's me going into the emotional side of things, because emotions are so important, and we mustn't feel frightened of feeling, or even looking at times when we felt our lowest, because, and this is another thing, when we are really struggling and feeling our lowest things, whether it's fear, sadness, loss, apathy, whatever it is that's keeping our vibration really low for any period of time, it doesn't mean that we are disconnected, because it's often in those times when people talk about perhaps the dark night of the soul, when you have the best divine inspiration and interactions. We're never disconnected. It just feels like that. And, you know, imagine it from a color chart, two opposite colors. I'm not going to choose black and white. Say we choose yellow and blue. Well, you know, they're not direct opposites, but say they're opposite enough. Say you choose two different colors, yellow and blue. If you're feeling really blue, when something bright yellow comes into your sphere, you notice it, you really feel it. But if you're feeling almost yellow and then you hit bright yellow, then it's not such a big leap, is it? You know, you're close to in vibration to that, so it doesn't have the big such a big profound effect. So you know, my thoughts have been recently, it's not to worry about the whole range of emotions that we have, because that's one of the truly magical divine parts about us as human beings, is that we can feel this massive range of emotions, and we can feel them all in one day. And yes, we know what we want to try to do to attain a higher vibration, of course we do, but also to recognize if you're feeling your lowest, that's when, you know, divine intervention can really feel its most impactful. So that was just my thoughts that came up then. Over to whoever wants to talk about the solar eclipse.
Well, you had it over there on the American continent. We didn't actually have it noticeable here.
Nor us here.
So maybe Sue and Chris should speak about it.
I think
I don't notice eclipse energy, like, because I don't notice energy that well. I did go out in my hammock. I got my little pin box. I looked at it different ways, but we didn't have much of it. It didn't even get dark here. So you'd have to talk to the guys down in Texas or Michigan or Maine. But Chris might have noticed something.
Yeah, in 2017 here, we got full eclipse. I mean, it was amazing. This time we were only supposed to get a little piece of it. So I'm in the US, in Tennessee. But I did. I went out at that time and took Dudley for a walk, and it was really just a very, very strange at the time of the eclipse, because part of the sky was dark and rainy, and there was another piece of it that was very, very bright. And right at the time of the eclipse, this rain came down, and it was really hard to describe. It was almost like this blur, and it was like in this like trickle effect. I've never seen anything like that. It was for like maybe 30 or 45 seconds. So it was really, and it was just really interesting and hard to describe. I will say that many people in the US who have posted things and talked about it said that they felt and who were experiencing the eclipse. And I had a good friend who went to Indiana and sent me pictures of it and was talking about where she felt the impacts. And it was particularly in her solar plexus and her throat chakra. So there's a lot of people who were talking about the connection and the energetic shift that they felt associated with it. Anyway, and beautiful, beautiful pictures. So other than that, not much update there, but I did want to comment on Becky's talk about emotions, because I do think I hear regularly people who are on a spiritual path who think, okay, we're trying to get to the highest emotion where we're just going to stay at those emotions, and then kind of beat themselves up when it's like, oh, well, I was feeling, depressed or down, or I got mad, and that's not good. And it's taken me a long time to come to this place, but I feel like part of our life experience is experiencing those emotions. And Becky talked about the polarities, and there are times, I think, when all of us, we feel really down, and then when we have something wonderful happen, it's extra wonderful because we've just been way down here and we're moving up there. And so I don't think it's like a progression. We're going to get from here to up here and then stay up here. The life experience is going through these things. Now, I think that as you're aware of your emotions and vibration, that you can more quickly, I know for me, I can more quickly move from where I am if I'm in a lower vibration. And sometimes I just have to acknowledge it and say, I'm going to give myself time and space to like be really sad about this and then, help lift me up from it. And I can very quickly rise up from it. But I used to, and this is kind of a family thing in my family, like just kind of suppress emotions and like pretend they aren't there. And I can say that's not a healthy thing to do. So I think we're here to experience emotions, and there's lots of reasons for them. And it's just part of our journey. And I don't know, Grandmother Mulara or Sue, if anyone else has anything to add to that, but thanks for bringing that up, Becky.
Well, I was saying to the grannies before we started the recording that I actually conducted a ceremony, ran a ceremony at the time, well, a little bit later, like 4 hours later here in Australia, than the eclipse itself, and it was really to put spiritual energy of that eclipse time into that Nandaka Dala Australis spiritual energy. Every document we use has got a spiritual energy in it. We're using it on everything. We're just blowing it in to the documents. And a song came through from the ancestors for us to sing up, and I can share it with you. It'll be just minimal, but I just need to go through to put my headband on in all due respect for the grandmothers and the ancestors. So I'm just touching my headband, just doing my connection. And this is proper business. And so you can all be learning this actually. We use a feather. And I'm not going to get up and dance it, but there's a dance with it. So the idea being that we're calling in the spiritual, the divinity, but what we did is we brought in a star. We called in a star that came in to bless all of us, all of humanity, all of the living creatures of Earth, which includes the rocks, the elements, everything. And what came in as we're pulling in the star was the song. It's like we're just bringing in the power. Jingy ma, 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 jingy. And then we go to the land, and we sweep the land with our feather. The same thing. Jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma. We call in the people from the east. Jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma. People from the north. Jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma. People from the south. Jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma. People from the west. Jingy ma, actually do it with two. Jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, come in. Jingy ma, jingy ma, jingy ma, and it just goes on, and then there's a dance to it, and so it came in with the power of the what was it called again? Not solstice.
The eclipse, the solar eclipse.
That's it. The solar. I've already gone off. I'm off somewhere else. The solar eclipse. So it's bringing in that energy, bringing in the star energy, and putting that into the earth, bringing up Mother Earth's energy, her consciousness grid, meeting them, and bringing power. It's a power song and a power dance that goes with it. And it's about bringing in the people, all of the people from every direction, And it's not necessarily just Australia, we're working in spirit world here. So this was really beautiful way, a gift that we got given at that time. And I'm now going to teach all the women to sing that song for every ceremony. And the men, they can sing it too, but they'll hold their spears and or their whatever they've got, their power sticks, their journey staff, and will face it outwards so that the spear tip is outwards and it protects what's going on in the circle. That's what happened to me. Nanga.
Thank you, Grandmother Mulara. Wow, that's beautiful. Now I have that little, I'm going to call it a jingle, but that little jingy my in my head. That's beautiful. Is there a significance to that?
Yeah, it's a power. It's the power generation and generating power and calling everyone in, and we're bringing in the star and the star energy into all of what's happening, or into all of creation here.
There we go. So we actually have one of our questions from a member, Grandmother Mulara, is kind of on a similar note. So this question is for you and for Becky. So the question is, in a prior Zoom session, Grandmother Mulara spoke about an affirmation we can practice towards CC's highest and greatest good. And it was something like, I call in the spiritual body of connecting consciousness to align myself with and all that I say and do. And so the question is, can we obtain official approval, permission from Becky and Simon for CC members to share and practice this affirmation? So maybe we start with Becky and then Grandmother Mulara. For those who didn't have the opportunity to see that, perhaps you could talk about it or something similar. Thank you.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. I know a few people had some concerns, but I just wanted to say first, about 2 years ago when Grandmother Mulara and I first met, and we had a couple of long chats and like visualization sessions. Both of us independently in a visualization session saw the oversoul of connecting consciousness. And it's something that's really so beautiful. What it is basically the connection. It's the connection of oversouls of members who are in CC. So it's something that changes. It comes and goes. It's very it's a really beautiful, strong force, but it's ever changing, and it was absolutely beautiful spiritual body. And I do connect to this, and I see and I know the divine support that connecting consciousness has, because it's for the highest good of humanity. Our intention is for the highest good of humanity. It's I know a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about our organization. It's free to join, it's free to leave, and we just intend for humanity to be supported and connected, and people who have felt isolated through their own understandings and beliefs have the opportunity to connect with each other at a local level, in a country level, and worldwide over a whole range of different topics. And you know, we have guidelines and code of conduct to support it. So I'm going around and answering it in a very big way, because CC is a magical, beautiful thing. And we saw the energy of that from the divine perspective of what connecting consciousness is. It's not just a group of people connecting over the internet. It's so much more. And I think Grandmother Mulara did an exercise where this, and I will hand over to Grandmother Mulara for your thoughts on this.
I actually can't even remember the moment. It just, obviously it's come through me from divine consciousness, but I think maybe it was a question from the audience about how we can help CC and how we can align with CC better, more effectively, I think might have been the question. So that would have been the response. But you know, this alignment is important. So if I go into free will, like one of the questions is about karma and free will. So we do live in a universe of free will. That's, you know, that's pretty much in all traditions that they talks about that. Sorry, my cat's wanting to have a say about it too. So, you know, it's almost pretty much in every tradition, whichever you go, you know, look that way, there is a sense of free will. I just wrote some notes about it. So, but if we always retain free will as to whether or not we pay any attention to what we're saying, let alone what your astrology chart might say, or what this particular neighbor up the road might say, or the guru around the corner, you know, your free will is to whether or not you take notice of that. Just like, you know, we've shared an affirmation. Your free will is whether you choose to use it or not. It's up to you. So there are vast energies that flood through the astral field, movement all the time, and that everything is relative to everything else. So there's the spiritual law of cause and effect, which is like the law of karma, or I prefer to work on karmic grace. And the you know, however we look at our free will, it is actually just not what has the opportunities that are given, it's what we do with it. You know, do you have the will to clean yourselves up? Do you have the will, which I think is really important as a base line of what is it we can do to ascend? We need to be clean. We need to cleanse our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our body. We need to cleanse our spiritual bodies. We'll have that spiritual hygiene I've talked about some time ago. So but it's still up to you. It's your free will. Now, that's the free will in the lower will, which is kind of in the seat of the solar plexus and belly area. What we're talking about as a spiritual organization, or as a spiritual evolution, particularly with the spiritual law of vibration that Becky talked about earlier with David Hawkins, to reach those higher levels of frequency, imagine electricity. To reach the higher voltage, okay, if you're working with the old electrical lines, they're not going to hold the new voltage. You're going to clean it up. So clean up your pathways within you, so that you can bring in and hold a stronger spiritual voltage. That's really, we're talking about the charge that comes in. And to be able to do that, we do have to remove or let go of so much that's been holding us back. And it's mostly in here. It's mostly here in our mind. So there are, of course, there's karmic consequences if we impose our will on others. That's not what we're talking about here, not at all. We're saying we gift you some tools to rise, to practice, and we help you with that. But it's still up to you. If your free will is about what will you do with it? Will you discard this bit and take this on? It's your free will. The key, though, about the law of free will, it is a spiritual law, is about being in alignment with your higher will. We actually have two. So imagine yourself like a hollow bamboo. And if you were bringing in the energy, the spiritual energy of the divine through you, then you'll be like a hollow bamboo. But it will get through you if your electrical energy, nervous system, electrical system is strong enough to bring in that voltage. And it has a lot to do with free will. It has a lot to do with will itself. Now, to develop our will, there was a question about, is it all right to have ego, or shouldn't we have that? Well, the ego is the lower will. we actually do need an ego as a human form. It's important because for will to be developed, it needs an objective. I've just done the values masterclasses, which is about what is it that's taking you into the future? What are your future values that are pulling you into the future? All right. I can't shut her out at the moment where I've been. She's wanting something. Her future will might just be feed me. So where was I? So we need an objective to develop our will, just as we need an objective to move, to motivate us to move in the world. We either move forwards or backwards, but we don't want to be going backwards, we want to be going forwards. So we need an objective to function properly. So that's our ego, our lower will. And then if we have the skills and the intellect, let's say, and the cognitive ability to do really well at particular things, and we don't do it because our free will says, oh, I can't be bothered doing that. Gifted in that area, but oh no, I can't be bothered doing that. Then that leads to aimlessness and lack of progress in life. And it side rails your personal development. Each of you have been given gifts, and the opportunity to develop your gifts is your will. Do you have the will to develop your talents, your particular gifts? And then more gifts come. The more developed you are in your will, you'll find the more connected you'll be with your divine will. I hope I'm making sense. But it's not as straightforward as, oh, well, I'll choose to do this and not choose to do that. A person who has the will to, aspire to become one with the divine, which is what that affirmation really was about, will actually find that they'll have a spiritual voltage will come through and bless their life. Enough said.
That's absolutely beautiful, and I completely agree. So I love how you said that. Thank you.
I love how you said that too. I also love your little jingama. Like, I don't feel eclipse energy, but I could feel that energy when you were doing your little non-dancey singing, whatever. Absolutely. But I want to just share. I totally agree about the free will. Our free will is one of those amazing gifts we've been given that has been usurped or manipulated, or we've been really naive and agreed to all kinds of things that are not in our best interest, which is why I do what I do. But I just want to say, for me personally, because Becky, I heard you say some people were worried about aligning with CC, and my first alignment is I fully align with my divine self, me at the highest. Grandmother Mulara and I use different words, but we're not talking about different things. That's my first alignment. Now, because I've been saying that for years, so CC comes into my frame of reference, and it's like, oh, this is what I'm being given to allow my gifts and my whatever to come out like this. So I align first with my divine self, and then I align with CC at its highest and best, because I want to be part of that happening. And if it's not in alignment with my divine self, it wouldn't have made it this far. So it's not like, oh, I'm aligning with CC and that's my number one. It's like, no, it's within my divine alignment. Also, because protection is something people always talk about. When I say my will is only for only what is in full alignment with my divine self. Like, that's my free will choice. I have the power to make that choice. That is me setting my boundary. That is my protection. And I know it's for every single person to find their means of protecting themselves that resonates with them. And so find it and use it for, anyway.
Sue, thank you. And I just wanted to add, so Chris and I have been doing the spiritual topics now for over 2 years, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful process. It's been a huge development process for us too. And the long and short of it is that we are wanting to enable and facilitate every member who participates to develop their own sovereignty, to recognize their selves, to face the things that they are frightened of or don't like, or any issues that they have, and look at them full in the face and learn to overcome and love them, so that they can move, as you say, and as Grandmother Mulara says, move forward. It's values are at the core of everything. We all have values, what we agree with, what we don't agree with, what we like, what we don't like, what we aspire to, what we want to reject. And they do, while core values can stay the same for some people for their whole lives, for many they change. And for the feedback that Chris and I have received is that for, I would say, pretty much everyone who's in Connecting Consciousness and participates in the spiritual topic discussions, their values noticeably changed when they woke up, when they became awake and aware to whatever it is they became awake and aware to. And for everyone, it's different things, whether it's major health issues which then make people look at the health system that we have at the moment and perhaps look into alternative forms of healthcare, whether that's been the awakening thing, whether it was stolen elections, and recognizing what goes on in terms of evil and corruption in the world, or whatever it is that, you know, was the defining moment. From then on, our values changed, and they may have, their internal ship may have changed course so much that they're then out of alignment with their family and friends who they were originally in alignment with. And that can be so isolating. It is taking the path less recognized. It is embarking on your own personal journey where you recognize things now. You're taking the next steps in your life consciously, rather than just sort of, bumbling through life as many of us do and have done. And that is a step to sovereignty, and recognizing one's own sovereignty and one's own power. Stepping into one's own power means that you are responsible, and you're not frightened of being responsible for every aspect of your life, including your personal and spiritual protection on every level. And just recognizing that we do have the power to make our choices, to protect ourselves, and that's what we want for our members, because when every human being recognizes and accepts their responsibility and their sovereignty, then they shine their light that bit brighter. And when they do that, this is on the David Hawkins scale, it says that everyone who has that greater strength, shines their light that bit brighter, they shine the light for others around them. And just by the fact that humanity is connected, and we know that our hearts not only pump blood around our bodies, but we have this toroidal field, and sometimes the energy field can be huge, and our hearts connect, our chakras connect, our energy fields connect, and we can expand enormously when we know how, and we can actually do it even when we don't know how. And this connection is infectious. And people, I saw another thing that was really fun. A guy on a tube was on a phone, and I think this is all set up, he started laughing to whoever was on the phone, and within a few seconds the whole train was laughing because his laugh was funny, and it didn't stop. And so within a few seconds, everybody was laughing for minutes. And that shows how our emotions are infectious. And if someone's really frightened and clamps up, that feeling of fear is also very infectious. Everyone was like, what are they frightened of? And everyone suddenly will suddenly restrict. So we're not in isolated individuals. We our energy is connected, and if we radiate an emotion, an energy, that will be felt by others. And here in connecting consciousness, if we recognize that and we and take our own lives into our own hands, just in the sense that we accept our responsibility, it's becoming an adult, really, spiritually. You know, we're no longer a child needing to be led. We're an adult, and adults still need to connect. They still need to share ideas. They still need to, you know, just check in with others. Does this feel, you know, how does this feel to you? We still want assurance and reassurance, but it's time for humanity to grow, and if we can help people in our organization, that'll filter out.
So we've been talking a lot about our emotions. We do have an emotional body. Our emotional body is connected to our inner child. So if we have wounds that we still have yet to clear and cleanse, and they may take a lifetime. You know, wounded inner children, there are many of us walking around wounded. That's in our emotional body. So to grow, we need to parent ourselves. Our inner parent needs to parent our inner child. So there's that part of the emotion. Then there's also, I'm just thinking about, there's a question from Cyprus members about how emotions affect our realities. Well, I think Becky's been talking all about that, and what the realities are and how reality is created. It's through our thought forms. You know, we've had an experience that's lodged in our emotional body, and then we attach meaning to that experience. And that's kind of where it begins. And it's about backtracking to actually find out what on earth is that core emotion that I was putting this label on it, but the actual emotion is what I need to get to in order to dissolve it. So it's a bit of work, but it is profound work when it's done. I also wanted to add a couple of things from the spiritual questions. There's one from Oregon that says, how do we best overcome our negative emotional subconscious programming from society and trauma? So what, again, we clean up our old beliefs, and the old beliefs are running our thoughts, running our thought forms. You know, what it is that we believe is true may not in fact be true. We've attached some thoughts or some labels, some judgment around an emotion, and it's that which needs to come off so that the emotion can be set free. Otherwise it holds us. So cleaning up our thoughts and our belief systems is important. There was a question from Maryland members that said, how do we tell if we're coming from ego or from authentic self? I think it's really appropriate right now. So I already said earlier, the ego is, it's not necessarily a negative concept. No, we all need it to drive ourselves in this life, to momentum. It gives us some momentum, you know, to feel good, and to know that we're achieving things in our life. That's some ego in that. Also to know when to eat and to drink and, you know, shelter and all of that. It's all related. But how I would say you can tell whether something's ego orientated or it's your authentic self is something as simple as, if it's coming from ego, there's an outcome that you want. If you're coming from your authentic self, there's love. It's love. Your authentic self is love oriented. Your ego self is outcome oriented. So there's different ways in which there's a different energy that you would apply to that. Also in that same set of questions, we've got sets of questions here, like 10 pages of them, but I'm just going to, I'm not going through all of them. I'll just go through one more from Los Angeles mob about non-judgment. And they wanted to know how to define about being judgmental. You know, over the day, you might have an opinion about something or a judgment about something as you go along. Now, so you can have an opinion. So what I say is, what triggers you to judge? Again, go back to you. As we've said before, what is the trigger within you that has caused you to make a judgment. So in the law of non-attachment, actually, is actually the law of non-judgment. It's the same thing. So if we're judging something in other, that's actually in us. If we're critical of someone else out there, we're being actually critical of ourselves. The more that we can genuinely, authentically build our love for ourselves in a genuine way, we're not going to need any of that other stuff. We don't need to judge others. We actually will feel full ourselves, and our toric field can be so massive from the heart, and that's your protection. There was another question, if I'll just do one more, from EC Group, whoever you are. Hello, EC Group, who wanted to know, what are the most important things for us to know at this time? And the answer is, there is only love. Only love. All else is man-made illusion. That's the most important thing. Over.
Wow, there was so much there, Grandmother Mulara, and a couple of the questions you answered, and the answers you gave, I was really feeling. One of them was is to do with recognizing when you're projecting as well, because so many people, well, we all do it from time to time, project our own thought forms and our own issues on other people. So what they think they don't like in someone else is not even necessarily true at all about them. It's just one's own projections. So we've got to be so careful about that is to do with judgment, because we do judge others for different things, but we also project things onto people that's just not there. And that can really interfere with relationships, and also one's own personal progress. So, it sort of stops you dead if you spend your whole time projecting anger and disappointment towards somebody, whether it's a family member or a friend or a figurehead in society, when we think they're thinking and behaving a certain way, but they're actually not. And it's just our thoughts about them or what we've heard they're doing. So we just have to be so careful and bring it back to oneself. Always bring it back to yourself. If you're feeling anger or disappointment or judging, as Grandmother Mulara, anybody, think about why and what it is you don't like about what you've read, what you've heard, what you believe, what you've felt from a personal interaction, and bring it back to yourself, because at some level everyone is just a reflection for you to work out your own soul development. And it's not, we always talk about soul development, spiritual development, but the biggest thing, the biggest opportunity is the combination, is the living in a human body. And this is the actualization, this being in the physical form where we have our combined, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical bodies. This, in a way, is the greatest achievement. And we're not recognizing this. And it is the programming that we've been given. It is the societies that we've been raised in. It is the challenges that we face and the things that keep us down, sometimes very much intentionally so, from other beings and parties. But we are, as a divine human being, it is the ultimate creation. And if we can recognize this in ourselves and do our own work and recognize our spiritual power and integrate it so that we are a whole human being, I think this is what people are looking for. People talk about, and another question that was asked is, what's the difference between a carbon-based and silica-based? And I know that many spiritual teachers talk about this. I know Magenta Pixie does, and many others, that we're moving from a carbon-based to a silica-based, or it's to do with crystalline. Yes, we are evolving, but it's just recognizing who and what we are right now. We keep seeking a perfection in something else. We keep wanting things to be, thinking things, oh, it would be perfect if, or things would be better for me if. But we have the opportunities, and we are all in our own situation and circumstances right here, right now, to give us the opportunities for our own personal individual growth.
Yes. Yes. And I love one of the biggest challenges for humanity is to allow that spirit and body to integrate fully. Like people like the body and not the spiritual. They want to be spiritual. And how do I stay up here and don't want the body? But we're here. We've got both of these. The intention is for it to integrate so that so that your divine essence can move within your body in the world of form, expressing your divine essence. It's like that's our biggest challenge. And once we do that, I love it because Grandmother Mulara and Becky, you're both saying go back to the self. And I saw all the questions saying, what's our best way? What do we need to do? It's like, know yourself, own yourself, let yourself integrate, get your divine connection. Once you have your divine connection, I call it foundation of being. Mine is fancier than her bamboo tube. Mine is like this, this luminous, like more like the sword in Star Trek, but it's this connection that goes all the way out to our divine self and source beyond, but is also deeply connected into the earth and the physical place we find ourselves. Once you drop the things that block that, like drop the programming, clear up the emotional, like there's a lot of ways to do those things. And it's getting faster and easier, I do have to say. But when you have this intact, your foundation of being, you don't need to know what happens next. What's this going to look like? How do I do, like you can trust yourself and the divine, and the unfolding. If you've noticed, more and more, like we can't take the past and project it into the future like before. We are not going to just continue along this same trajectory. We are going through a whole different quantum leap. You're not going to know that in advance. Well, your best way to travel through this is to become seated fully within yourself, which brings you a strength and an integrity, this foundation of being that you can ride through the unfolding without fear, with trust, with faith, without fear. And that affects everything. It affects you, but it also affects the whole human collective unconscious. It affects the animals around you and the plants. The more you let that divine, I call it grace, that divine energy, that the more you let that in, it just starts, you can't contain it. It just starts rolling out from you to everybody in your household, the people in the grocery store. Like, doing you fully and right, becoming whole, is the best you can do to help all of humanity. And in that, you will remember your gifts. You will be given the support you need, everything that would support you in the unfolding for you to bring your gifts to the fore. You may not know what they are. It doesn't matter. I love it. Somebody said, how do I connect? How do I communicate better with my guides? And it's like, you're already, the communication is already there. You just don't recognize it, but you still have moved because, you've known to suddenly turn left or to quit this job or drop that person. You just need to discover, recognize the language that you're being spoken to with. But there is so much more working perfectly within you, each one of us, as we go through this quantum leap. And we all came here to help for a purpose. It's working. You don't need to understand it. That's the ego. My two cents.
Can I jump in again and say, this is good to bring up the question from Tennessee, a short explanation of religious versus spiritual. You've just done a beautiful explanation of what it means to be spiritual. What are we talking about? The religion has their own pathway. They've created a pathway and they say, you go this way. You have to go this way through me. to get to this part, to the divine, or whatever that one is following. That's what's different. You all can do it yourselves. We are spiritual beings. Religion is programming. It's saying, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, or you'll go to hell. Well, that was another question. Hell is a man-made concept. There's no such thing. So that was another question from somebody somewhere, one of some country. Sorry, I can't remember you. Sorry, I could find it quickly in a minute. But just the difference between religion and spiritual is a good question. But I think I just want to come in now and say, beautiful explanation, Sue, for what it means to be a truly on your spiritual path, working with your spiritual essence. A religion is you doing it externally. You're trying to go through someone else. Spiritual bypass is another term for it.
Thank you, Grandmother Mulara and Sue. And Grandmother Mulara, you've done a great job of pulling in a whole bunch of questions. Appreciate that.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. There we go. All right. One thing I did want to add to the religion and spirituality question is that you can be deeply religious and also be deeply spiritual. So some people use their religion, regardless of what their religion is, as a pathway. And they also are looking within and seeking their own truth and taking what works for them from their religion, and also developing inward and use that as a path. I know people who they love the songs and the routines and the rituals, and those things kind of feed them and their own spirituality. So I did want to mention too, there's a difference, but there are some people who use both together in a really beautiful way.
Can I just add as well, just to that, is that religions form a framework, for better, for worse. And sometimes that framework can be helpful for people just starting to explore. It is a way of exploring spirituality, whatever the religion is. And, but sometimes that framework can become restrictive. And so it's recognizing the confines of a religion.
Okay, thank you, Becky. How about one more question and then we'll wrap up, because we've been going for a while here. But this question from Nevada is kind of tied to our theme of going within. And it's about forgiveness. And the question is, it seems self-forgiveness is the hardest and keeps coming back up. Is this an indication of more shadow work needed, or is the act of self-forgiveness much deeper than anticipated? I will say I do believe self-forgiveness is the hardest form of forgiveness for sure, but I'm going to pose that question to the group.
Can I just thank you, Chris? And it can be simple, it can be complex. To make it a bit more complex, us as selves, we contain within our DNA ancestral traumas and issues, and there's an element of this is working through that, whether at a conscious or subconscious level. And then there's our soul history as well, for past lives that we've had and unresolved issues. So there's that as well as this life. And so there's benefits for us living our individual life that we are living right now, that we do have amnesia over the past soul lives and perhaps past ancestral lives through our DNA. So that's where I just from having done the shamanic work, I do recognize that there's those two strands to it. But self-forgiveness, it's so important, because and it is the hardest thing to do, but recognizing again ourselves connected with everyone. If you forgive yourself, you are forgiving everyone. So yes, it is hard, because what can go over in our minds is I can't believe I said that, I can't believe I did that, and things that you wish you hadn't done, and you whether it's like last week or 20 years ago, and or things that you did, but you're sad, you did and you knew it was the right thing to do, but you're sad for the negative outcomes that it has created for others in their life. And it is the hardest thing to do, but we do have to look at that for a full understanding of our part in all that is. But recognizing that it is free will's involved. I will hand over to Grandmother Mulara.
And therefore it's the greatest breakthrough that's coming through the practice of forgiving oneself for all the mistakes you've made. Just please forgive me. I thank you, I love you. The Ho'oponopono is a good one. And it can help release you and set you free. That's the key. You want to forgive others and set them free, and forgive yourself and set yourself free. My elders said to me, we have a lot that's happened. We've had murders, massacres of our people. They said, but we've got to forgive, because if we don't forgive, it hurts us. That's so true. The Aboriginal people of this continent are the strongest in teaching us about forgiveness. And so I share that with you to say everything can be forgiven. Everything's possible to be forgiven. And each of you as well in that process. Forgive yourselves and set yourself free. And line up your free will, line your lower will with your higher will. And use that as your guide. Consider that your GPS. Nanga.
That's wonderful. And people always say, whatever you resist persists. So look at what you're resisting, and that'll be a key to where you need to look at to help yourself forgive yourself.
And there'll be the law of correspondence, another spiritual law, will be that there'll be indicators when that's changed. You'll see there'll be a shift. There will be a shift as each wave of forgiveness happens. There'll be clear signs that will come in. Sue.
I totally agree. Like when people were asking what 3 things do we need to do, love yourself or know yourself, but forgiveness was number 2 for me, because there's so much baggage that we carry, and you got to be able to drop that stuff. And it's like, what in my work, we break agreements, and often it's the victim breaking the agreement with the perpetrator, but it lets both sides free, which goes way beyond forgiveness. It's a recognition that on a soul level, we've all made really bad choices and come in and gone through with them. Karma's a bad idea. I'm sorry. I think it's like, who thought of that? That was a really bad idea. But if you take it to a higher level, it's like, who wouldn't you forgive? Well, then so then how can you not forgive yourself? A lot of the issues people have with self-forgiveness, it's like, what makes you not forgive yourself is your judgment on yourself. It's from the programming or the ideas or the beliefs or the values wrongly accepted, that a lot of it's programming, but a lot of it is like, you've accepted the programming and the beliefs. Who says you have to do it this way or that way? So I would go, even some of the self-forgiveness that's difficult, go look at the value you have and why you are judging yourself so harshly. Like, I love the idea of a supreme creator and its creations. What would it not forgive? You guys have children. What would be unforgivable for your child that you love? And so we just have to find, we have to remember oneness and the magnificent beings we've been created to be, And the more we hang on to the little petty stuff and hold it against ourselves, we didn't come down here on earth to beat ourselves up. That's not what we came for. And I do agree, Becky, about, I always call it bleed through. Stuff from other times and places that shows up in this life, but has no reason to. It's bleed through from others, but that we can clean that up too, as we take total responsibility and deal with ourselves, which is something else you mentioned.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, Sue, and thank you very much, Grandmother Mulara. And I guess this is time for us to wrap up this podcast. It's been so wonderful to reconnect with you. I've really enjoyed this chat, and I do hope, and I'm sure our members will too. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Lots of love to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was way fun.